U.S. President Donald Trump is reportedly running out of patience with Russia as he tries to negotiate a ceasefire deal in Ukraine. The DPA news agency says that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told a NATO meeting that Trump probably will not accept Russian President Putin's delays much longer. The NATO meeting in Brussels was focused on peace in Ukraine, with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte reiterating that Russia is the greatest threat to the alliance. Secretary of State...
Soon enough, in a matter of weeks, not months, whether Russia is serious about peace or not. I hope they are. It would be good for the world if that war ended. But obviously, we have to test that proposition. So we're working through that process. We had a visitor, that Mr. Kirill was here this week, had a chance to sit down with him. He met with others. He'll take some messages back, and the message is the United States needs to know whether you're serious or not about peace. Ultimately, Putin will have to make that decision. The Russian Federation will have to make that decision.
All right, for more on this, I'm joined now by Bradley Bowman. He's Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington, D.C. Brad, it's good to see you again. When we hear that Donald Trump is losing patience with Vladimir Putin, what does that mean to you?
I think it means that he's losing patience. He famously said that, he would have this solved in 24 hours. That was always a unrealistic expectation, but it did suggest a stereotypical American impatience that the president was bringing to this. And some of us said all along that that's going to be tough because you're dealing with a stone-cold imperialist and Vladimir Putin, and former KGB officer who will lie, cheat, coerce, and steal his way to whatever he wants. And President Trump, like many presidents of both parties before him, is learning in a rather painful manner that Putin's peace means something very different than the way Americans and Europeans think about peace.
If Vladimir Putin does not show the commitment to peace that Trump says he's looking for, I mean, what options does the United States have?
The United States has a lot of options. We're publishing a major report on Monday, a 2-year report where we looked at 25 weapon systems that have been requested by Taiwan to ask ourselves whether providing those to Ukraine delayed their delivery to Taiwan. You know what the answer is? Not one of them was delayed by more than a year. The United States industrial base has the means to provide Ukraine the means of self-defense if it chooses to do so politically. We could dramatically increase the flow of weapons to Ukraine, and there are all kinds of sanctions that could be imposed on Russia. Unfortunately, up to this point, this administration has been reserving its sticks for Ukraine and its carrots for Russia, and I think that's exactly backward.
The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, he just spent 2 days here in Europe trying to reassure everyone that the United States is still committed to NATO. Do you think that Ukraine believes him when he says that?
Well, as you and your viewers know, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but there's a larger issue here of U.S. foreign policy toward Europe, and whether this administration fully appreciates that the United States has vital national security interests in Europe. We had 2 world wars start there in a 30 or 40-year period that ultimately pulled us in, and hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their lives. Our most important economic partners there, our most capable allies are there. And so what happens there matters here. There is broad bipartisan support for NATO. There's a broad bipartisan understanding that NATO is a grand strategic asset for the United States and not a liability. I think President Trump's core concern is that too many of our European allies have not spent enough on defense. And he's right. There's been significant improvement in European defense spending thanks to Vladimir Putin, but they're not where they should be yet.
The NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said today that Russia is and remains NATO's biggest threat. He said it's a conviction that is shared by all members of NATO, including the United States. What do you think, Brad? Does that also include U.S. President Donald Trump?
We'll have to see on that. The truth is, which to me is the most important thing, is that Russia is the leading threat to Europe. It's the second leading threat to the United States after China. And we know that China and Russia have a deep and growing security cooperation, as our intelligence community testified in their worldwide threat assessment recently. And we know that China and Russia have been working together since 1989, and that cooperation is growing closer and closer as we see this acts of aggressors emerging. So at this moment, America's adversaries understand the value of partners. America's powerful, but we need our partners more than ever. And I think anything that undermines the transatlantic alliance is a gift of Vladimir Putin and will hurt the United States and will hurt Europe.
Okay, Bradley Bowman, as always, Brad, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights on this Friday evening. Thank you.